All right, 7:01. We can go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Adiola Mbaname, co-chair. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Ruth Febo.
Here.
Juan Acosta. Juan Acosta, I just saw that you came on. Are you here?
Present.
Oh, thank you. Noor Ali. Jean Budenhagen.
Present.
Beth Casavant.
Present.
Paula Collins. Deb Delgado. Jenny Fishman.
Present.
Maura Egan.
Present.
Luis Garone.
Present.
Lindsay Heffernan.
Present.
Elizabeth Hilton.
Present.
Donna Jarrell.
Present.
Thank you. Alan Jarrell.
Here.
Kelly Joseph. Kelly Joseph. Okay. Rup George Kaur. Milind Kanitskar.
Here.
Thanks. Zoya Mehta. Richard Pertucci. Priya Ratnam. Oh, Richard. Okay, thank you. Priya Ratnam.
I'm here.
Thanks, Priya. Leonora Ryan.
Present.
Thanks. Janine Sands.
Present.
Thanks. Navjeet Singh. And Helene Nguyen.
Present.
Thank you. Good evening. This open meeting of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order on March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Board of Selectmen the DEI Task Force is convening by Google Meet as posted to the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please be sure to press *6 to mute your device. The meeting will not feature public comment. Please wait until I open the item for public comment and press *6 to unmute your device. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All right, we can open the meeting with the first agenda item, which is approving the minutes from May 3rd and May 10th. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes. This is Beth. I can second them.
Thank you.
Can I just ask if we have a note keeper, a minute taker? Yes, okay,
Yep.
Thanks, Elise.
Yeah, we're both doing it. Yeah.
And then both meetings approved, minutes approved, sorry. Next item on the agenda is the survey subcommittee will present a final survey and rollout plan for the survey. So I can pass it over to the survey subcommittee.
All right, thank you. This is Milind here. Can I share my screen? Just
of course.
Get a little presentation.
Do you have the controls to share?
Yes, so let me do it.
Oh, awesome.
Just give me a thumbs up if you are able to see my screen.
Yep.
Thank you so much. All right, welcome to our first update. So I believe little over 3 weeks ago, this team was formed exactly on May 10th, and these individuals took on the responsibility to create a survey in addition to their additional responsibility or the earlier subcommittee assignments. So what we did is, our approach was pretty simple. We wanted to answer what is the purpose, what response means to us as well as for the community or the respondents who are responding, and how would we be using this data or the responses, like that information. And considering that there are various questions around DEI and demographic and everything, we wanted to make sure that in order to measure those, we need to create a uniform measuring scale. So we arrived at a categorical range where we can, someone can respond from strongly disagree to strongly agree with, 5 options in between, saying agree, neutral, disagree. So that was our approach. And, I know there were a lot of questions that were asked earlier, what is the purpose? So we wanted to just nail that down. And with that context or with that lens, we approached creation of survey. So we have used Google Forms. The survey will be open for Shrewsbury residents 18 years and older. It's completely voluntary and anonymous. We have 5 to 7 DEI related questions. There are some conditional workflow where you can switch between the sections of the survey depending upon your answer. And then we are also collecting the demographic information, and that's completely optional because someone might feel uncomfortable sharing that kind of information. With that said, our proposed timeline to launch the survey is June 14th, which is next Monday. And we are planning to run this survey 6 to 7 weeks, ending on July 31st, with reminder emails going out, couple of reminder emails on the dates that are shown here. We can present draft analysis once the survey is closed, and we can share that information when it's made available to us. Rollout plan looks like this. We have considered digital, print, and community help. And from a digital perspective, again, anything that's written here is, we are not just limited to those. If anybody else knows more ways to share this, please feel free to reach out to us, and we can certainly accommodate that. But these are the few things that we have noted here: town's web page, email listserv, school, community, media, community advocate or SMC, social platforms, Shrewsbury Facebook groups or WhatsApp, WeChat, and humble request to DEI task members to share it in your personal networks so that we can reach out to many more folks need that data. From a print and community outreach perspective, I know Beth had mentioned last time that we will be able to get certain number of copies. So we are thinking of putting those copies in town hall, senior center, or library. I know we have some question around that as to how we get those copies, and we will need some volunteers to collect those back once someone has filled up those surveys. So that's something that we can discuss it after we present this survey. But that's something that's where we will need some help as to how we get those copies. Community outreach, within our team, we had discussed about reaching out to, your church or, India Society of Worcester or other things that of, and we don't know yet. We haven't reached out to these organizations, so we don't know whether it fits into their policies and procedures or not. But, I think you are the connection to your own, community
I'm
teams.
sorry,
And
Willen, there's a lot of background noise. If folks could mute, please.
Oops, sorry.
are we good
Thanks.
now?
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you. Yeah. So coming back to what I was saying was, like I think reaching out to your own community will be helpful. And again, as I said, we don't know whether that fits into the policies and procedures of those community outreach teams mentioned here or organizations mentioned here. But certainly feel free to reach out to them. Um, we can collect more data. We can socialize this survey more. Next steps, we are going to meet later this week to manage the message that goes along with the survey in the emails as part of our executing the rollout plan. We'll continue to monitor the early response, and as I mentioned earlier, we will need some volunteers, especially collecting those print copies or making those print copies. From a library perspective, Priya, I might reach out to you, or I'm looking at you in on Google. So we'll need your help to place those, and I don't know if we will be made available the bins to store those responses that have been filled up, so that we can collect it in the bins rather than collecting one season, one paper forms. So that's what our next steps are. As mentioned, we plan to roll out the survey next Monday, June 14th. That's the update. I'm going to showcase you what we have created as a survey. The questions and the structure of the survey is pretty much all set. Probably we're just going to take one more pass in our meeting to just make sure that the questions are in the flow, so that they are not randomly asked and people can relate to those. I'm just going to share that. I'm going to present. I will need one more thumbs up. You good? Are you seeing the survey now? Okay, thank you. All right. So what we have done this is something that we just wanted to know what this survey is about. So we wanted to give a context as to if someone doesn't even know that we have a DEI team. We just wanted to put down why are we doing this, and what is the context of it. So I just picked up these things as part of the town's annual report that was published. And if someone wants to know about what DEI teams are about, they can click on that link just to know more about what we as these individuals or these many teams we are doing. As mentioned earlier, we have mentioned purpose, what is important. This is completely anonymous and voluntary. We just wanted to put that out there right from the get-go. And these are the questions related to DEI. As you can see, the red asterisk is required. And what we have created is, this is the scale that we are talking about. It's strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we have asked questions like, do you feel included in the town activities? And we have tried to give an example like town events where Spirit of Shrewsbury or 4th of July summer concerts that happens in Park. Festival or events, ease of doing business as a business owner or as a consumer or a town service. Do you feel inclusive of those? Or if I'm performing my civic duties, like participating in this committee, for example, right? Or many such committees, or voting and volunteering for any other things. So that's this uniform scale we want to just apply. Couple of other questions that we are asking is like, do you feel comfortable communicating with your neighbors or your fellow residents? Whether inside the business, on the town lawns, or Dean Park, or any other place, and what kind of subjects related to DEI you're comfortable with, or you agree or disagree. And we have, other than DEI, we have also included political choice and environmental issues as well. And then, here is one thing that I was talking about is, there is something like a workflow based or the answer based workflow that we have created. So I'm just going to fill this in just to show you. Another thing I wanted to mention is these are the things, even though they are required, as you can see, I haven't filled anything. It just requires one response per row. So you can't select multiple ones, but you can select and it goes away. So that's what the required means. I just want to select something here so that I can show you. So if I say, have you experienced a bias? If I say yes, click next. It's going to ask me, tell us more about your experience and what kind of bias or discrimination you or someone you have observed went through. Also, was that incident encountered within any town services or departments that was observed or encountered? And then, was that her discriminatory experience directed at you, or as an observer you saw happening on somebody else, or you have multiple incidences where you can just click both? And if I just for a second back out and just say no, I have not experienced any such bias or discrimination. If I say no, it just skips over that topic completely, and it asks the question, in your opinion, what town should do, should do more, or yes or no. Then again, we are carrying the similar scale as to, do you agree, or do you think, town can implement more policies to address issues in what areas, service boards. And we have asked multiple departments or services to cater to, instead of asking the questions individually per subcommittee, we have included those here so that we, the context or the gist of the questions is similar. That's what we observed based on the prior questions that were asked. And then we want to find out how whoever responding is, a person is, how did he got to know or she got to know, and they can select it. The last section is the demographic section. And this is completely optional. We just want to know how long this respondent has been living. This whole section is optional. How long they have been living. Currently they are living in, what kind of facility, or their own houses. Who this respondent is it someone student, college going student, because we are opening 18 plus. We just want to know what they do and what category best describes them, and what their age range is, what's their gender identity, if they are transgender, what their sexual orientation is, are they veteran, and then what, if at all, someone have a disability, what kind of disability they have. So that's what we have captured as part of demographic information. And again, as I said, it's voluntary. If somebody wants to give us a suggestion, they can write it here in really small text here, and that's again optional. And we just want to hear if something is not covered in our survey, we should be able to capture it here. And just that's their choice. And here, last one, we just want to make sure that they understand that this survey is being filled by them, and it's just their opinion. Nobody's forcing them to do that. And once they click the submit button, we will receive that information. So this is exactly the same copy will be made available as print copy. I know we had talked about the shorter survey, but from a DEI perspective, it is really short. But we just wanted to make sure that we capture even other information so that we are able to correlate their responses with their background. If at all, we are hoping, even if it is optional, we are hoping that every one of them fill that information and they feel comfortable sharing that information. That's all I wanted to share. I just wanted to I'm really thankful. Our team is really go-getter, and everybody from day one, we met probably 3 times, and everybody was super helpful, full of ideas. That said, I'm just going to stop sharing and open for any questions, comments.
Melinda,
Yep.
can I ask that you actually keep it up in case people have questions, we can reference it.
Sure.
Thank you. And I'm just going to call names here by the order in which I saw them. Adeola, unless you want to do that, I'm trying to find that section now.
Lindsay and Dean.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you so much, and Melinda, and to the other people who worked on this. I appreciate this is a lot of time, so thank you. I wonder if you were to go to what was the last page, Melinda. I don't know if it's hard for you to get there or to click through the right here. Can we stop for just 1 second? And so, is there a question before this in terms of ethnicity where you ask if someone identifies as Hispanic or Latino? And a lot of the survey work I've done at work and in census work, I understand they ask that question separately and then let people multi-select race. And so I'm just wondering if you all thought that through. And my only other comment, and then I'll be quiet and just can respond, is that when people fill in open text, I know you can get a lot of really rich information. It might be worth a reminder to folks that they can often inadvertently identify themselves in doing so. And that if we are asked as a public entity to share the results, people even though you say, I admit I do this voluntarily, it might be worth in that open text is just a reminder that it happens at the schools a lot too, where people then say a lot and we spend time going back and redacting, or, if people say, I want to see all the results, we go back and try to delete it so that when I, added my name inadvertently or said my teacher is blah, 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 that sometimes can come back and undermine the anonymity. Those are my 2 comments. Thanks for all the work.
Melinda, can I respond to the question about ethnicity and race?
Sure.
Great, thanks. In public health work, there is sort of this move to kind of change the way that we ask that question, because oftentimes when somebody identifies as Hispanic or Latino, they actually don't identify as like white or black. That is their race. We found that in a lot of work that we've done with young adults and also with people that are on mass health benefits and things like that. So they have the option of identifying both ways, but we do find like up to 50% of people, Hispanic, Latino, don't identify with a race.
And then I'm sorry, I don't mean to, can I follow up?
Yeah.
So the thinking there, and then as opposed to making this option sort of multi-select, where for those who would like to identify as both Hispanic and African American, that they would have to pick the multiracial, or is there and Jeannie, I'll totally defer to you if that's the move the public health world is going, but I'm just trying to understand a little bit how we don't want to lose what might be a really important identity factor for somebody.
Sure, and I could actually see this being more of a multiple choice selection, and that might be better suited. I think the idea was for folks to identify with what best describes them. How do they most identify? And you definitely have people that would identify with more than one, right?
And I saw Elizabeth had a comment about that.
Yeah, I definitely do think that the race should be separated. I know my family that's in Shrewsbury that are Puerto Rican, they identify as Black, and they are pretty adamant about wanting that option to identify as Black as well, because they're Afro-Puerto Rican. So I do think it is important to separate the race from ethnicity.
So in that instance, they could check off Black and Latino, no? Or do you think that would not work? If we'd made it so in this category, you didn't have to just choose one, you have both of those versus breaking it out. We're trying to make it as few questions as possible. Was a big part of it, is not to make it intense, make it pretty easy. So I think as long as you can pick up more than one in this category, you can identify, because you could be white and Hispanic or Spanish, right? I mean, so I think that's the key to keeping it short and maybe working. But that's not my issue of something that's offensive to me. So that the reason that we wanted to bring this up to the committee was we wanted to get those points. If there was something that somebody says, oh, this is sticking to me a little bit with my whatever my background is, that's what we wanted to know. So this is all good conversation. It's just a matter of really having to decide between short and effective versus longer and effective, I guess.
So can I just, I'm Puerto Rican, and so I can chime in on this. To Elizabeth's point, for race and ethnicity, I do enter Black for one and Hispanic for the other. So I understand we don't want to add another question, but maybe making this multiple choice will definitely capture all of that.
I think that's an easy fix, right?
Yeah, I think we can take
That's
another
easy.
pass at this.
Yeah, I think that's an easy fix. We can do that on our meeting this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Juan, did you have another thing to add? I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I identify. Oh, well, I'm Dominican by birth, so I identify Hispanic, and I agree with the previous comment. I personally don't identify with race. I identify with the ethnic group, which is Hispanic. So to me, that's a race, even though it's not generally considered to be so. So, you know, again, some folks may identify as Black or white or other in the Hispanic category. I identify with none of those. I just identify with Hispanic or Latino or Spanish origin. So I think, again, I agree with the sentiment. It should be multiple choice because it's a very varied category that expands very many racial groups, many ethnicities, and many countries. So obviously, it's difficult to be boxed into one small circle. So I think definitely that make it multiple choice.
Thank you.
This is great feedback because I think it definitely helps to inform this question. Like, for example, if I know from a lot of people that identify as Brazilian, they don't identify as Latino Hispanic. They're Brazilian. That's their identity. So yeah, we'll take another pass at this.
Also, just for uniformity, if you're going to say African American, you should say white / or European American.
Good point.
Dean had a question, right?
Jean, it's your turn.
You're muted, Jean.
Jean, you're muted.
Jean, try to unmute yourself. We'll come back to you. So I was up next, and I just wanted to jump on what Lindsay said, putting that little disclaimer there that if they do enter free text, that, you know, that could be made public. But also someone suggested in the comments, maybe we shouldn't have free text, and we should just provide an email that they can send information to. But unless they're sending it from like an anonymous source, anonymous email address, I don't know if we would have to capture the name of the sender. So I don't know if that's a good idea either.
Actually, Ruth, this is Louise. I
Yes.
put that in the comments, and I should have added, with the assurance that results sent to this email address will be reported anonymously. This is for collection only.
Okay.
They won't be. If it's sent by email, it's not going to be anonymous. We have, as I can tell you, as a storyteller committee, we had this conversation with the town manager, and it will not be. So if you're sending an open response, it's the response is there, and it's going to say you can't really protect it. So I would not be comfortable making that statement. It's possible that we may be able to keep it somewhat confident, but I don't think so based on the response that I got from the town. If somebody requested the information, they would be able to get it. At least not necessarily the person's name, but the email and it becomes public record once they send it. So I wouldn't be comfortable.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think that the thing to put there though is just the storyteller link to go there, and then they know once they get there, because it's on there, of this is, this is what the rules are of this, if you're sending information in. So maybe that's the fix here, is that keeps this whole survey anonymous, but the other one is not.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. I just think you're buying yourself a truckload of trouble by putting in any kind of open response.
Agree. I think this one should be not open. Did we add that? Because I didn't even remember that being in there. I thought we were just linking it over to the storytellers.
Yeah, I think that was being really last one. We have been passionately discussing all other things that we kind of it just fell through the crack. But yes, if there is a group, for this committee, if that's something that needs to be shared, or the link, for the storytelling, that's what we will do. Thanks for the suggestion.
I agree, Louise. I just think it keeps it cleaner. So this whole thing is completely anonymous. You just check off boxes. We also, the big point of this committee that we all felt really strongly about was just making it as easy as possible. We want somebody to be able to finish it in a couple minutes and send it in. And the other thing that's critical that Malin brought up earlier is that it is critical that all of you share this as well. The way we're going to get this out there is to hit all of our personal circles to get as many responses as possible.
Thanks, Paula. Oh, sorry, Jean.
Yeah.
Jean,
Can you?
Okay.
Can you?
Yep.
Can you?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I think it's laid out very, very nicely. But my only question is, this committee is representing the town of Shrewsbury. Should this be run by town council on some of these questions we're asking?
By town council, do you mean the select board?
No, the town council, our legal council that represents the town of Shrewsbury. We're representing the town of Shrewsbury, sending out this survey. Is there any legal problems with it? And he could
That was why my hand was up, Jean. Thank you.
And he could just scan this very quickly and say, you can't do that, you can do that. I just don't want us to get into any legal problems. That's what happens with prior surveys.
Thanks, Jane. That's a really good point. Thanks, Beth, also for that. So I think one of the action items that will come out of this meeting is if someone from the survey committee can follow up with that, or you can, Adiola and I can take that if you guys don't feel comfortable. So just either way, it will get done.
Yeah, I think we'll need help on that one. Like if someone can just point us to the direction, or Adiola and Ruth, if you want to take that, that's fine.
I could just jump in on that point. So the town has town council, basically lawyers that work for the town, and they review materials as needed, and they represent us when needed if there's legal challenges or court cases or things of that nature. So I would suggest that the survey committee provide the survey to the committee chairs, and the committee chairs work with, so Valerie Clemmy has taken a new role, as you all know, in the town clerk's office, and so we'll now be working with Taylor Galusha, who's Valerie's replacement, in the Board of Selectmen town manager's office. So I would copy, I would copy the town manager on it, but send it to Taylor and request that town council take a look at the survey before it's released for the public.
Beth, is that something that's going to cost the town anything?
So I think that it's a wise use of dollars. I can't imagine it's going to cost more than the 1 hour of time it would take, let's say, to build this. And I think it's important that it's done before we put this out, because putting it out without town council review would cost us a whole lot more if we run into some trouble. So it's money well spent. Let's make sure we take care of it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're okay to spend the money.
Thank you. So, yeah.
Can we also get an idea of how it will change our timeline for rollout?
Yep.
When we submit it. So, thank you for bringing that up, Jean and Beth.
Well, I mean, we'll try to get it out as soon as possible, and hopefully their turnaround time, it really will depend on them, right? So if we can get this out to the right people tomorrow, hopefully by the end of the week, but maybe not. So maybe it might push it out a week.
Town council is very responsive. I mean, that's the role of them, is to, support the town in issues like this.
So we're meeting again on Thursday, so we can do our edits and then get it out to them by the end of the week. And maybe we push out the launch a week to give them next week to review.
Right, because we don't want to give it to them now because we're making some edits right now. So
Right.
Exactly.
We don't want to send it tonight.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so
Right.
up next is Elizabeth. Oh, sorry, Millen, did you have something to add to that?
No, I was just saying that, accordingly we'll adjust our rollout, timeline.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth?
Sorry, I didn't realize my hand was still up, but I posted it in the group anyway, just thinking about like Caribbean countries that were listed under Black. We also have Indians and Chinese people in Jamaica who are Jamaican.
Okay. Thanks, Elizabeth. All right, Rajesh.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. So mine is, I think most of my comments are already addressed, so I just add that with the open text field, I think we extensively discussed this already. I just also wants to mention that as this survey as a baseline for all the future feedback loops over the period of time, I think it would be more appropriate to have that as a long-term definition of these categories, and also eliminate any free text, because it's in the back end. I don't know how you get the data to analyze it. With the free text, it gets a little complicated, and when you combine over the years data, let's say from here now to next 5 years, to see the trend line, that free text gets pretty unreadable data for data analysis. So so taking off the free text would be a good idea. And also categories, I think common consensus on the categories, the race and ethnicity categories would be good, so that either the current standards or maybe the future standards, whatever it is, so over the period it stays more closely aligned for the long-term analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thanks, Rajesh. Jean, if you could put down your hand, if you'd like to raise it again, I'll put you at the end of the list. Leonora, you're up. Thanks, Jean.
I think that the survey's I think it's laid out very excellently, but our subcommittee needs 2 questions answered, yes or no. And I didn't see any place where something like that would be.
So I mean, I don't want to speak for the survey committee, but I thought we had decided as a group that this survey was going to be more generic than very specific to the subcommittees within the DEI. But I see that Paula has a hand up, so maybe you can answer that a little bit better.
So, Leonora, what questions did you need answered, yes or no?
We need
specifically
the question answered, have you experienced food insecurity? And the other one is, has your child had dental sealants?
Yeah, so we're not going down to that level. We agreed as a group that we wanted to keep the survey fairly high level, again, to keep it fairly short. And I know, originally we asked everybody for questions, and we asked, we looked at all those questions and tried to group them into sort of these big categories. Again, in the interest of keeping it simple and not drilling down that deep. I think that deeper work is probably what's going to happen post our recommendations of this committee, because particularly dental sealants are pretty specific thing. So we just didn't go that deep, frankly. We made a choice. We really wanted to, like I said, be easy. I mean, even with the races, I think we could add this country and that country all day long. There is an other category. There is a, biracial, multiracial. I think we're going to have to pick. So, try to get as many groups as possible, make sure we have multiple, but we're it's not going to be a page of the survey. It's just not realistic.
Well, the survey doesn't really help our group. And I didn't see anywhere where it could be inserted.
Leonora, I think maybe you, Adiola, and I can meet with your group and maybe discuss a way to get you some information in that area. But it was decided as a larger group 2 meetings ago, I think it was, that we were going to keep this more generic. So I don't think they're going to be able to put those questions in there for you, unfortunately.
Okay, maybe we can meet and talk about it then.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Leonora. So Louise, you have your hand up next. Louise?
There are many, many white people who do not identify with Western Europe, and some of them are not all that white. But the fact of the matter is that we need to accommodate people from Central and Eastern Europe, as well as Russia and the whole Indo-Asian peninsula. Now, I mean, just looking at this list, I don't know of the quick solution to this problem, but I do know that I have some Russian associates, people I know in this community, who will feel left out if we call white people Western European.
Louise, that's noted in your chat note. We see it. We got it. We got that note.
Okay.
So there was a comment put in, maybe this is a space where we put in the free text. Maybe if the person selects other, they can type in and we could limit it to like 20 characters or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Ann just put something interesting in the chat.
So yeah, can I say write your race instead of the multiple choice? Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to use both, right? Multiple choice and write in your race.
I see Elizabeth. We see Elizabeth's comment as well. I think, I'm a little bit like, I don't know what, we could go round and round on these categories all day. We're less concerned about the content and more concerned about what people are going to check off here to identify themselves. That seems to be a little bit counterproductive to me, in that if we make, I like the open idea on the other, so we can get everyone. I think we could probably find people and keep going on this to find somebody we missed all day. So I'm more concerned with the content of, are we getting information? And yes, this is part of what we're looking for, right? But at race or ethnicity are 2 different things. I think we're just spending time on something that's semantics.
Yeah, and
we can take another pass at this, and I think leave some space for open text. I think, in looking at this list again, which I did pull from sort of, surveying people's race and ethnicity, suggested ways of asking the question. But I do think there's, South America and Central America are missing, and you've got, Brazilian that don't necessarily identify as South American, but as their own thing. I mean, it is quite the rabbit hole to go down. So we just want to make sure that, we will try and include as much as we can, but then have the open text.
Yeah, and just to add to that, at some point in time, we need some kind of a standardization to create metrics, and that's our attempt. And if it is not, covering certain ethnicities, I can choose others so that we can improve this particular section for our next round of survey, whatever that may be, right? As Rajesh was mentioning, like, I think this is just a baseline, and we can build on this thing. We don't know everything, but at least we'll get a pulse what our community looks like, based on these selections. So this is just first attempt of standardizing that data.
Okay, I see two hands raised, Elizabeth and then Lindsay.
No, I put my hand down.
Oh,
I
sorry.
put everything I got in the chat.
So I actually had my hand up. I wanted to get in line. Just, are we going to report this in the final recommendations just as data gathered, or what are we doing with what comes out of this?
Well, I would say we're going to gather the data, and then we're going to talk about that as a task force in terms of what do you want to do with that data? Do you want to include it in the report as these are the priorities based on what came back, and this is the trends we're seeing? This is, that's all going to be determined by what the data is. I mean, the first step is to get it done and get the data, and then you can figure out how you want to incorporate that into your final report.
Okay. Thank you.
It helps us kind of prioritize certain things, or it just gives us more narrative, from a data perspective as to what we can do and what we should prioritize for another things.
Okay, thanks, Malin. And Paula. Lindsay, you had your hand up. Thanks.
Yeah, on a different question, going back to if people had experienced some sort of discrimination, I wonder if you want to ask a question about if they ever reported it. So if we went to all of the town departments and asked them how many claims, civil rights cases have you had, and people had previously reported them, we might inadvertently double count. If they've been reported, if they're satisfied with that, and there's a few ways you could take that, so I'll leave it to the committee to take it offline and think about if that makes sense. But if we come to find out that there have been lots of things reported and people are still unhappy, we might have a different take versus there's a whole bunch of stuff that no one's reporting, which might tell us about their perceptions about what might happen should they report. So again, you all are doing a great job. You can take that offline, but just a suggestion to consider.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Lindsay. So that's the last hand up. Does anybody else have any final questions before we move on to the next bullet item, to the next agenda item? All right, no hands up, except for Lindsay's is still up, but I know she went to take it down. All right, so the next agenda item, Adeola, can you refresh my memory?
Sure, yeah, the discussed proposal of landing page on town site with resources for residents. So asking all subcommittees to provide what resources they want to add to the page, to discuss a name for the page and where it should be on the town site.
Thank you. Yeah, so I had brought this up at the housing subcommittee, and I believe it was talked about at 2 meetings ago at this larger group, about having possibly having a recommendation to the town to have a landing page on the town site that stems from the work that we're doing here. And it will simply have resources for residents. If you've encountered discrimination in housing, you can click on maybe, and there'll be maybe 1 or 2 links. So just for all of the subcommittees to start thinking about what resources you'd like to have on this page. Also, like what we might want to call it. Hoping that it'll be there for many years to come. Something generic, but tied to the work that we're doing here. There's a hand up, Beth.
So do you mean that this is going to be in addition to the current diversity, equity, and inclusion task force page that's on the website?
I mean, no, I mean, it could be, I imagine that page would change after we're done with this charge, right? In some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe replacing that page with, this is the work that, maybe it's a high level summary of this is the work that we did, and here are some resources for town residents.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Of course.
So do you, I'm sorry, so procedural. So do you think that that's something that we would be putting in our recommendations? I would like to see that in a recommendation. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. Ooh, there's a bunch of comments coming up. Give me a second. I'm still navigating Google Meet. Resources related to diversity, equity, inclusion. Yep. Yeah. Anybody else have questions, comments, suggestions?
I see Rajesh had his hand up. I'm not sure. Is that from before, or did you want to say something?
No, yeah, I just wanted to add that it's definitely a good idea. Once this committee task comes to an end, it would be very helpful for the town residents to see what's been the outcome of this committee, and also the survey results in a more high level data, as a high level data points, would be very helpful, so that the conversation keeps going rather than we're all set and done and everybody forgets what we did or what it means, DEI. So as we all agree that it's a journey rather than a one time thing. So I think it should have a significant, or not necessarily, at least a good presence on town's web page.
Thanks, Rajesh. Yeah, I think it'll be very helpful, for new residents as well as lifelong residents. So are there any other questions before we move on to the last item on the agenda? Rajesh, your hand is still up.
So Ruth, can I just add to that? So we're going to take that last agenda item as a recommendation to add to the final report. Is that what the consensus is?
Yes, and we're asking all of the subcommittees to start thinking about, right, what they want on that page.
Okay. So maybe each subcommittee can, so that would be a recommendation that will come through for each subcommittee, and provide ideas of resources that you would like to see on the page under that subcommittee topic.
Right. So it would be all on one page, but right. I imagine it would be like, public safety links, and it might have links to the Shrewsbury Police Department. Maybe if they have a page that they use for community service type thing, maybe points them there. For housing, it might have a link to, where you can report if you feel that you've been encountered discrimination in housing, some general resources, and maybe even a point of contact if this is going to be something moving forward, right? If the DEI task force is going to exist in some way, right? Maybe like a little email address or something like that. But yeah, so the subcommittee should start thinking about what they want to include on that page.
Right. Also, yeah, and another example is recently the town approved the minority-owned business and women's day. So that would be great to have a list of all of the minority-owned and women-owned businesses in the town and locally. So
yeah, that would be fantastic. Tie it all together. Yep, of course. All right, Louise, you had your hand up. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, I had my hand up because I was thinking that the healthcare committee might have a great interest in providing resources, either related to dental hygiene for children, dental health care for children, to food pantries, etc. So I think that that suggestion popped into my head, and I wanted to share it before I forgot it. Thank you.
yes, awesome. So these are all great ideas and perfect suggestions on things that we would want for this page. So as you guys are meeting in your subcommittees, please remember these and take them down for final recommendations. Awesome.
So it's 5 of 8. So I think we can get through this last point and not take a little break, which is simply, Adiola, refresh my memory.
So last agenda item, discuss template for documenting recommendations and supportive narrative. A, are we prioritizing recommendations? If so, how? B, the outline, the heading, standardized criteria or template for the final recommendations.
So I'll start that. This came out of a question that was sent to us by one of the DEI task force members. And what stuck out most was, do we want to prioritize our recommendations? And I personally don't feel that we should prioritize because I have a feeling that the different, right? So we have all these different subcommittees and we've all worked really hard. And I'm sure all of us think our own subcommittees points are more important than some other subcommittees points. So maybe we prioritize them within each subcommittee, but not prioritize them overall. But again, I'm just one member of this task force, so I'm open to suggestions. And also, yeah, we're looking for if you guys have any recommendations for templating and that sort of thing. So there are already 2 hands up right away. So that's Melinda and then Donna.
All right, thanks, Ruth. So yeah, I agree that, I think our charge is to give recommendations. We should not prioritize them. We should just come up with, based on what we have done for the whole year, each one of our, subcommittees, the task was done or was given to identify the gaps and provide the recommendations. And that's what we should do. I think the prioritization is something. So prioritization is something that,
Can I call you back later? Okay.
Prioritization is something probably that action that needs to be taken by the department or the service for whom we are recommending to change. And survey will help from tooling perspective. I think, again, we are not, the primary purpose of survey is not to prioritize. It is a supporting artifact rather than the, making the most, resource to do that. I think if someone wants to use it and just see it, like what our residents think about and what is the major issue on their mind, and if they want to just dip into the survey results, that's fine. But that's not the purpose of the survey. But survey results can complement those efforts. But, I just wanted.
Thanks, Melinda. Yeah, and there might be some low-hanging fruit, that the town might see as an inexpensive, quick fix, fix that they could do, which might not be super high priority on any one of our lists. But if it's a simple, quick fix, they might be able to, check that off the list. So Donna, go ahead, your turn.
So thank you. It was our committee who actually put forth the question because we're trying to move to putting our recommendations together. And the idea was to align with the other committees to find out if there was any expectation that we would all follow, or when we looked at the quarterly report, we kind of identified that every committee had kind of taken their own approach to documenting things. So we just wanted to know if there were any templates or any guidances that we should start with, or should we proceed? The question around prioritization was really within our own conversations about the different recommendations we were having. Should we consider things that are kind of easy wins to get action started, or should we go for the big changes that are important? And those were the questions where we were asking about priority, not one group's priority over another. So I hope I didn't offend anyone with that question, but that's the source of these questions. We're just trying to get started and wanted to do that in a way that it would help the final report.
Thanks, Donna. That's really good info to know. There are some comments in here, and I'd really like input from everybody. As insignificant as you might think it sounds, we can build off of that. Someone commented respectfully, I think public safety recommendations should be afforded highest priority. And while I agree with that, right, that might not be that might happen the fastest, right? Just because it's high priority doesn't mean it's going to happen the fastest. So I guess we might have to define what we think high priority is, whether it's something that we want to happen first or more money be put into, you know, those sorts of things. So Rajesh you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think as a task force, I think when we look at the very high level of what the subcommittees have recognized as the issues or gaps, and based on the conversations with the town leaders, town employees, with all the things that are being done right now or ongoing, and the survey should tell us where's the biggest gap is, and some so I would suggest going. Um, I would, as a team of task force members, I think we can put in a 4-box recommendations. These are the things that the residents feel the need to respond in the near future, and in these are the things that residents are expected to be done in a given time, like maybe next year we want to see this to happen. So like outreach things, this can be done very quickly. Maybe healthcare and all those things could take time. So we can maybe we can recommend what we heard from the multiple uh, teams, participants, and leaders and residents. So we should definitely echo our sense of urgency to issues that needs immediate attention and the things that needs to be built up strategically over the period of time. And then town can decide based on the town's resources. Selectmen can decide what can be done. But I think we should not shy away from proposing some potential impactful recommendations to the town. That's my thought at this point.
Thanks, Rajesh. Thank you. Jenny, you have your hand up.
Thanks. I think it would make sense to actually wait and see what all the recommendations are. What do we learn in the interviews and what do we learn in the survey before we actually figure out what should be the priority? We all have our ideas about what area or domain, but let's find out what the data says, because we have an opportunity to hear some of that now.
So true. I love it. Paula.
Jenny just took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say, is let's wait until we know what we have in those final reports before we decide how we're going to, what the priorities are. I also wanted to just, I appreciate Donna's line of thinking as well, and that their committee is at that point, and maybe if their committee has a format that they're thinking about, they could put that together, and then all the committee chairs could take a look at it to see if they can use that as a template if they're already that far ahead, because it sounds like they're that team is pretty efficient.
Yeah, and also to jump on top of that, so Donna just recommended looking at recommendations as short-term and long-term as 2 different categories, and I really like that a lot. Yeah, so if the public safety group has a template that they're already thinking of, please share it. If we can't come up with something here, Adiola and I plan to meet after the 14th, so after the second reports are due, so we can put this on our to-do list to come up with a high-level template that we can start filling in for our final report. So not these interim reports that we're giving to the BOS, but for the actual final recommendations report that we have to submit by October. Is there anybody else? Donna, you still have your hand up, but yeah, you lowered it. Rajesh, lowered it. Never mind. Oh, okay. Oh, no, Rajesh, I think, is that old or is that new? Nope, gone. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I kept hovering and it was saying lower, but okay. So does anybody else have anything else before we adjourn? Louise, I see you reaching for your computer. No. There's a lot of laughing going on.
The only thing I was going to say is that to remain true to the reason why this committee exists, we need to address anything that has to do with people feeling safe and welcome in this town with the highest priority. But I think that I do agree that the committees can prioritize within their own domains.
Yeah, and then seeing what comes out of the survey, that was a really good
And
point.
with short and long term.
Yes.
Appreciation for short and long term.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so last opportunity to raise your hands. All right, so the last, oh, Elizabeth.
This is just an announcement, and I hope this is okay. Worcester County Light Opera Company is putting on the play The Niceties, which is very relevant to kind of the work we're doing and the discussions we're having as a community regarding race and history. So I would highly recommend that everyone here check it out and look for tickets. It's going to be the weekend of Juneteenth, the 17th, 18th, and 19th. You can look up the play online, or you can look up the description of the play on Worcester County's website. It's wcloc.org, but it is very relevant to the work we're doing.
Can you say the name of that and the website one more time, please?
It's The Niceties, and it's wcloc.org. And it's going to be at JMAC, the new art space in Worcester.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Can you
Elizabeth.
also send it to me, Elizabeth? Send it to myself and Ruth, and we can share it with the group.
Will do. Will do.
Awesome. And I know I'm going on the 19th, so it's a nice plug.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing.
All right, so there are no more hands up. Do we have a motion to adjourn? And Louise, I see your hand. Do we have a second, Deb? All right, everyone, stay cool.
Good night.
Literally.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.